right away. Now, it is my great pleasure to invite our next speaker, Dr. Nishant, to speak on new developments in dry eye disease. Let me just briefly tell you how I hit upon Dr. Nishant. I don't know him at all, but I just heard him in a webinar. I'm forgetting whether it was a MOS webinar. I think it was a MOS webinar. And I liked his way of speaking so much that I decided that he has to be in this session. So over to you, Nishant.
Thank you so much for the wonderful introduction, madam. Thank you, madam, and thank you, Prakash, for having me here. So I'm going to talk a lot about dry eyes. Yes, we all know that there are a lot of new modalities in dry eye which are coming up, but we should never forget the olden days, what method we have been using, something which it has always been a standard protocol for so many years. So I'm just going to highlight something about the basic of dry eye and then let's more into the detail. So we all know the composition factors of the eyes, tears. You know, you have the lipid, aqueous, and the mucin, and the main hydrodynamic factors are the lid blinking and the closures. So there are two types of secretion which we should know, the basal and the reflex. Always we think about the amount of tears, but we should also know that the neurofactor also plays a major component for the tears to come. The functions of the tear film, we know that it is mainly used for the smooth optical surface. It keeps the surface very moist and it serves as a lubricant. It also transfers the oxygen which is required to the cornea. It prevents a lot of infection and debris. It washes away all the debris, and it's a pathway for the white blood cells in case of an injury. And it's a very perfect refractive media. We should know that the tears have a lot of characteristics. It's not only the amount of tears, but there's the pH, the surface tension, the refractive index, and even the tear evaporation time is also very important to know about the tears. Initially, they said that the dry eye is a disease of the ocular surface attributed to different disturbances of the natural function. But then Deuce later on rewrote it by saying that it's a multifactorial disease of the tears and ocular surface that results in the symptoms of discomfort, visual disturbance, and tear film instability. So it is not only the tears and the eyes one should look at when a patient comes with dry eye, but a lot of other factors as well. This is a simple slide, actually, when you know, it shows that it is not only the environmental factor, the lids, the blepharitis, but you have the core mechanism of the tear film instability, the hyperosmolality, the inflammatory markers, and goblet cells as well. I'll be telling about it later on in my talk. And the definition, we all know that it's mainly the aqueous deficiency and the evaporative, where we should concentrate a little more on the evaporative, where that is the main reason. And a little older age group patients, we always think about the Sjogren's and the non-Sjogren's diseases. Never to forget the drops. So I always ask my patients whether they are on any medications, because these also gives us the slightest hint and clue that they are on some long-term medicines which they have been using, which can also cause the dry eyes. There's a lot of symptoms which starts from burning, itching, sore, red, tired eyes, and not to say that some of them have even increased watering. So few of my patients still, when I tell them that they have dry eyes, even they say that they have watering. And then when you evaluate, there is a lots of loss in the lipid layer. And the signs, we have a lot of lid signs, which we should not forget. I also use a torchlight before I go into the slit lamp, because some of the main signs we tend to miss if we go directly into the slit lamp. So always start from the torchlight and then go on into the slit lamp and then start investigating the patient. So this is the thing which I actually follow in my OPD for all my patients, and I tell it to all the other doctors as well. Grade the severity, because it is very useful when the patient comes for the second time. We should know that whether their symptoms and signs have been increased or they have been decreased or they are being the same. So never to forget the lid. You have the cupping, you have the serous kind of discharge, you have lid margin keratinization, and then go into the conjunctiva. Always make sure that you evert the lids. So this is one thing which we should not forget for any patient who comes with dry eyes, to evert the lid, upper lids, and also just pull down the lower lids. And never forget to stain. Sometimes a simple conjunctiva chalasis also can cause dry eyes and severe disturbances, and which will not be relieved with only tear substitutes. We need an excision as well. So coming over to the cornea, which is the most important factor, which is most affected by the dry eyes, try to find out the allergic history or any other detailed examination and history of the patient, irrespective of whatever age group they are. So this is the pattern which we have a slight understanding from the AAO guidelines, where after staining, you will know, you'll have a slight highlight of what is the main cause based on where the stain pattern has taken. Fluorescent clearance test is also one of the important factor, where it is not, this is what main causes the reflex tearing. Because later on, when patients come with dry eye and they're not comfortable with only lubricants, we tend to put a punctal plug. But if they have a good reflex tearing, the first day onwards, they'll start complaining of watering. So which was dry eye will become a nightmare of severe watering. And there are other tests such as the tear film breakup test. So we grade it from 1 to 4 based on the seconds in which the tear film breaks up. And all the stains, that is the fluorescent, rose bengal, and lissamine, are important in each specific way. So this is the fluorescence test, where you have all the other factors in the cornea, the micropunctate keratitis, and all the things which can be detected. There are other laboratory tests as well. That is the impression cytology, the tear protein assay, the quantitative mucus assay, and the tear mucin measurements. So this is a tear lobe osmolarity system, which actually make sure that you don't touch the conjunctiva or the lid margin. You should just try to touch the tear film height and increase tear film osmolarity of greater than 312, suggestive of a severe dry eye. This is another test called the Fern test, where you just have to take a sample of the tears and apply it on the slide and allow it to dry. You will find that there'll be a uniform arborization, and the numerous branching which are seen. You can see in my first slide that is a normal eye, and D suggestive of severe dry eye. You don't have any branching, whereas B and C are associated with lack of lactoferrin and lysozymes in the tears. Inflammatory tests, you have the very spot test, which is used to test the MMP level, MMP9 level, and it's very simple. The same way, just retractor can just touch the tears. In 10 minutes, you will be able to get the results. A red and a blue will suggest of positive, a blue will be negative, and if there's no line, it is invalid. So what are the newer diagnostic modalities before we go into the treatment? The SPM is a device which actually gives us a lot of information on the infrometry, the tear meniscus, blepharitis, mammography, white-to-white measurements, and non-invasive beauty. These are all mainly for the tears. So I'll go with the infrometry. It shows the amount of lipids. So you can see that the picture on the left, you can see the colorful image, which shows that the amount of lids is present. And on the right-hand side, you can see it is a white layer. So that shows that the lipid level is very less in infrometry. And even you have the lipid layer analysis. Tear meniscus height, a simple way is done in a slit lamp examination by making a thin slit, but you also have these devices which will give you the height of the tear film. Non-invasive T-beauty time is also showing in these kinds of SBM devices. Mammography can actually be done for using our auto ref. If you try to sit in the auto ref and try to evert, you can actually see the meibomian glands as well. But these devices give a higher picture quality and helps us in treating more better. I follow the DEWS dry eye treatment plan, according to which level the patients come under after taking the OSDI scoring. And yes, coming over to the management, we all know that there are so many types of tears which are available, so many types of drops which are with the preservatives, without preservatives, unims. But it is not only the tears, but why we are giving what tear substitute is what which matters the most. Because one, it should provide an adequate relief. It should increase the humidity of the ocular surface, and it should also cause a smooth ocular surface leading to an improved vision. Because if they are having some blurred vision, you should see whether it is a CMC, whether it is a HPMC, or it is a PVC, whatever it is, the patient, one is the comfort, and two, whether they are getting any relief. So the dependency of the dose of drops also matters. It is not necessary that the patient should wear it for every 2 hourly. It is that we should make sure that they're comfortable with decreased dosage duration. Steroids is a double-edged sword. Yes, it helps in decreasing the inflammation, but it also causes some amount of dry eyes. Always make sure you give them with caution. Omega-3 fatty acids orally, yes, it does help in increasing a bit. Topical cyclosporin plays a major role. Autologous serum for severe dry eyes plays a role by, it definitely reduces the inflammation. And the preparation is simple, where you just take some blood and you give it, let it clot for 2 hours, and then centrifuge it, and then you can remove the serum and give it. So what are the other tear retention modalities? You have the punctal occlusion plugs, which are temporary or permanent. So you have the collagen or the silicone plugs, which are there. And then you have permanent occlusion by the cautery, which you cauterize either the lower or upper or both, based on the severity of the dry eye. Surgical modalities, yes, you have a lot of tarsorrhaphy, amniotic membrane transplantation, and mucous membrane grafting for lid keratinization in severe cases. Other surgical modalities, what's new? In terms of treatment, we have this LiFi-Flow, which is an FDA approved. So this utilizes the vector thermal pulse technology. So it uses actually a kind of warm compression. So yeah, I'll just show you how it is done. Yeah. So it is actually, it occludes both the upper and lower device. It also causes a massage, and it also causes some amount of heat as well. The other device which is used is the EI device. So this is something different from the LiPi-Flow, where it causes the intense regulatory pulse light therapy. So initially, when I showed you a slide where it is also the nerves which are helping in increasing the tears. Yes. So infrared nerve stimulation is also one of the factors where you can try to increase the production of tears, and not only giving extra lubricant and making the patient comfortable. We should find the mechanism where which we are trying to help the patient to increase the tear film. So there are two types. One is the IRPL technology and the IPL technology. So each one has its beneficial factors, one over the other. But yes, after a treatment, so there is a treatment protocol. I think the first month, the third month, and the sixth month, you'll see that the lipid layer, which was broken, and you have a continuous layer. So the patients do feel comfortable symptomatically, which is one of the main treatment, and the efficacy is around 85%. So I'll just show one small video. So this is the EI. So this is my last video. So then they use some jelly, so that it's a cold laser, but still it should not cause any burns to the pigmentation. So after they make sure that the device is charged. So yes, and you start clicking. So there are around 10 shots which is given on the inferior part, and then you can also sometimes give it on the superior part as well. So yeah, so this is the device, the EI device, which is used for the intense pulse treatment. Thank you so much, madam and sir, for giving me this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Nishant, for the wonderful presentation. I think it was really new, super new, and so many things you have covered in your talk.
Thank you,
people.
Professor.
Thank
It's
you.
a pleasure
The audience
for me to
definitely
be
will
here,
be.
sir.
Yeah, definitely the audience will be benefited. Thank you so much.